Pal was planning to come this evening along with his friends John Fitzsimmons and Paul Ha, but he got sick, so he was unable to attend. We hope that he has a speedy recovery. Additionally, we mourn the recent passing of Joseph Christian Jr. He is the grandson of General James Van Fleet, and many of you will be familiar with General James Van Fleet. He was the founder of the Korea Society. He commanded the 8th Army in the latter stages of the Korean War. Joe was a great friend to this community, and we honor his memory today. To truly understand the meaning of the Korean War and the foundation of this alliance, I turn to two legendary figures. Of course, it's the Korea Society, so I turn to General James Van Fleet. But I also turn to his friend, General Baek Sun-yup. General Baek Sun-yup is perhaps Korea's most iconic modern military leader. It is therefore fitting that in recognition of their service, General Baek was given the Korea Society's highest honor, which is called the Van Fleet Award, and General Van Fleet was posthumously awarded the General Baek Sun-yup Award by the Korean government. Both men understood the deeper meaning of the war and the importance of the alliance. Van Fleet said, "Korea is the battleground where freedom made its stand against tyranny. If we had failed here, the message would have been that free nations will not stand by one another. The sacrifices on those hills proved otherwise." General Baek said, "Because we stood together, the nation survived, rebuilt, and flourished. Every factory, every school, and every thriving city in Korea today is a monument to the soldiers, both Korean and American, who held the line." Both leaders were deeply committed to the alliance, both during the war and after the war. General Baek said, "The alliance was not forged on paper or in diplomatic halls, it was forged in the mud, snow, and blood of the battlefield. When American soldiers bled alongside Korean soldiers to defend a land that they had never known, for a people that they had never met, that built a brotherhood no time or politics can erase." Speaking to that mutual sacrifice and referencing the tragic death of his son during the war, General Van Fleet said, "My son died for Korea, but so did thousands of Korean sons die for their own homeland and for our shared security. Kindling their memory and recalling their courage, we are empowered to fulfill their mission, the preservation of peace and the flourishing of our two societies in partnership and in affection." It is an objective that we pursue here at the Korea Society, but we cannot do it alone. The challenges are too daunting, the tasks too great. We need partners from all corners and across all strata of the United States and Korea and other like-minded allies. So I invite you not only to mourn the sacrifice of our veterans and to acknowledge their tremendous devotion, but also to find inspiration in their deeds. There's a lot of work left to do, and we here at the Korea Society are honored to do it together with you.
To our Korea Society host Dr. Kim and General Stockel from the Korean Defense Veteran Association. Thank you for making this evening possible. To our veterans, on behalf of the people of the Republic of Korea, I offer you my deepest respect for your sacrifice. One veteran could not join us tonight. I was honored to meet Mr. Scalato 2 weeks ago, and I hope to see him again soon. I began my career in public service in 1994 at the Asia Pacific Peace Foundation, working alongside then Chairman Kim Dae-jung. I was truly inspired by his vision. He believed the Armistice could one day become a real peace treaty. To him, peace stood on two pillars: strong Korea-US alliance and strong US forces in Korea. From that vision, my takeaway was this: peace and security are never opposite. Peace is completed by security, not threatened by it. I see that philosophy in Korea's policy today. Last month, President Lee Jae-myung said, "Through strong national defense, that protect our people and our nation. We will build a truly peaceful Korean Peninsula, where the fear of war is gone and the need to fight no longer exists. So for tonight, I want to ask all of you a question. What does this anniversary mean for you? My answer comes down to three things: gratitude, reflection, and a pledge. Let's take them one at a time. First, gratitude. 76 years ago, brave young soldiers came from 22 nations, and beside them stood our own soldiers, fighting shoulder to shoulder to defend freedom and democracy. Without their sacrifice, there would be no Korea today. Rising from the ashes of war, Korea has become a beacon of democracy and a global economic and cultural powerhouse. This is a shared victory of our alliance and our greatest tribute to our veterans. Dear veterans, you were our champions for freedom in the past. Now, I ask you to be our witnesses, to pass on the true value of peace, to be our ambassadors for peace, bridging the Korean Peninsula to the world, because peace on the Korean Peninsula is peace in the Northeast Asia and a cornerstone for world peace. Second, reflection. When the guns fell silent in 1953, the war did not end. It was false, fragile, tentative, but for 73 years, our alliance kept peace. Strong national defense, steady diplomacy, open dialogue. Together, we kept sparks at the border from spreading into another war. It is true, the Armistice did not give us complete peace, but it did give us precious time. Time to build a democracy, time to build a prosperity. Third, a pledge. 73 years of this provisional pause have cost us so much in defense spending and economic burdens. This division left behind pain and constant fear of conflict. Now, it is time we move beyond the peace that only deters war. It is time we move toward peace that ends the war for good. That is the work of our generation, grounded in our alliance, growing through dialogue and cooperation. Let us make future defined not by fear of war, but by peace in our daily lives. Tonight, we honor the history of our alliance and give thanks to all who sacrificed for our freedom. We reflect on what peace has meant and what our peace can still become. The Armistice was never the end of the story. It was only the beginning. What remains now is to complete the story with the lasting peace. To our veterans, we will forever remember your sacrifice. May your courage be the light that guides us to lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula and for the world. 감사합니다.
It's my distinct pleasure to be here this evening. I want to thank the Consul General, the Korea Society, and my partners at the Korea Defense Veterans Association, Jack Foley, our Korean War veteran, that brings together the importance and understanding for the ROK, Republic of Korea, and U.S. alliance. I have a personal story, and goes back to about high school when I started talking to my dad about the Korean War. He served in the 25th Infantry Division as a sergeant in 1952. So I started going to Korea myself in 2012 as a colonel. And I always start my speech off with thanking my dad and everyone that served, and the Korean government, and the U.S. government, and of course the United Nations Command, all the member states that had sent troops, logistics, medical. Many countries you don't think were there were actually there, but they did have some caveats like just medical support. And it was that team that came together that brought us to July 27, 1953, the day of the Armistice. So as the Consul General pointed out, the war has not ended, but there is an armistice, and it has remained intact for 73 years. So the importance of this anniversary cannot be understated, and the strength of the alliance. So again, the Korea side, the Consul General, great co-partners this event. I would just like to talk briefly about the Korea Defense Veterans Association. There are some pamphlets and brochures up front. Everything we do is free. We do have a very major event going on the second week in October in Washington, D.C. That is the weekend before the Association of the United States Army does their annual meeting in Washington, D.C., which I think they're going to hit about 40,000 attendees. We won't. We may hit 150 attendees. But please, go to the website, look at that. You'll understand why I'm speaking today about the strength of the alliance, the importance of the armistice, right, which brought us a ceasefire on the peninsula. But if you've ever been to the DMZ or in the Joint Security Area, even today, it was just a few years ago when I was there, some torrential rains had happened, some mudslides had happened, landmines had come from the north to the south, and 2 Korean soldiers were injured. So there's misunderstandings, there's things happening on the peninsula right now. But yet, despite all of that, the Republic of South Korea is an economic powerhouse. And the goal of the alliance, in my opinion, is to try to keep that part of the world as safe and secure as possible, opening up for possible increased commerce and prosperity for all. So anybody that wants to know my story, you can just ask me questions later on. But I've been to Korea maybe 40 times. I have a smart entry system. I use the same line as the Koreans. I just do my biometrics, the gates open, and they magically let me in every time. I don't know why. I thought I was flagged in some database, but I'm not. So just a great country. I can tell you about all my deployments there. Started going as a colonel, retired in July 2019, and now I'm the New York City metro area chapter president for the Korea Defense Veterans Association. So let us be thankful for the armistice on 7/27, and I thank you, Jonathan, and everybody for their attendance today. A lot of familiar faces, and I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words.
In March of 1952, the Marine Corps Division was ordered to leave the East Coast and go to the West Coast above Seoul to prevent another invasion from the north. And I spent the rest of my time there on the West Coast above Seoul. But during the time that I was in Korea, I never seen a paved road. When we were crossing over to the West Coast, we went through Seoul, and there was some pavement there. But I never really saw a paved road. I was never in a building. There was just nothing there. It was pretty horrible, you know, seeing that. But anyhow, so when I left Korea, I was there for about 14 months, and sailed back to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Well, no, we sailed into San Francisco Bay, rather. And we got orders to go to different Marine bases from there. I eventually left the Marine Corps in 1955, after 4 years. And I immediately went into the police department in New York City. At that time, I was 21.
위하여 위하여 동맹과 평화를 위하여 들어라 잔을 들어라 위하여 위하여 폴리 선생님의 건강을 위하여.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm sure they would love to hear.
This day, you know, I'm going to be going to Korea in September on a revisit, thanks to the General and the Korean Consul General, and my friend Gunchik, who is my neighbor, and I'm looking forward to the trip there. There's an old saying that days go by slowly, but the years go by quickly. Since I left Korea, I always wanted to go back to Korea, but I was working and then eventually married, and things just kept on coming and coming, and I just couldn't find the time. So I'm really, really, really happy to be making this trip in September. Really happy. Really appreciate the people that helped me to be able to do this. With that, that's my story.
Well, Jack, I hate to give you some homework, but after you come back from Korea, you gotta come back here and tell us what you saw and how different it all was. We can't wait to hear that. Thank you, sir.
We went down to the memorial, and it was 40, 50, 60 veterans.
I can hardly wait. This is 75 years.
Vocês não, you know, I have no idea how food was. I was going to get all the years about this.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm sure they would love to hear.